Can you teach me the method of cracking it? Chang Qingyi smiled indifferently. Back in the day, when he participated in the National Youth Cup, the chess games he set up were much more sophisticated than this one. For him, breaking this chess game was simply a walk in the park. Since you are so eager to know the method of cracking it, then I'll tell you. Chang Xian the Immortal stood up tall and respectfully stood to the side, extending his neck to watch Chang Qingyi analyze the chess game. On the other side, on the way to the Emperor capital, Chang Halu has seen the one Chang Qingyi sent. After one piece of calligraphy by Bingxin Yin, suddenly decided to teleport back to the celestial capital through the nearby teleport circle. You should know that unless it's absolutely necessary, the teleport circles within the Great Yin Empire have always been restricted. This is because each usage consumes over 1,000 essence stones, and this is just for the shortest distance between cities. For longer distances, the amount of essence stones required would double. In this world, one essence stone is equivalent to 100 taels of gold. You can imagine how extravagant it is to use the teleport circle. Therefore, in less than a traditional time, Cheng Lu arrived with Bingxin Yin in front of a grand and magnificent palace. At the same time, a dignified man dressed in a golden dragon robe was standing with his hands behind his back in the center of the hall. The daughter Bingxin Yin knelt on the ground, bowing deeply to Imperial Father. Cheng Lu, the #1 talent in the Hall of Exceptional Talents, clasped his hands in a gesture of respect, showing his strength. Therefore, even when meeting the current emperor, he did not need to perform the kowtow ceremony. Elder Lu Bingxin, here are no outsiders. You don't need to be too formal. Please rise. The current emperor of the Great Yin Empire, Yang Yin Yin, may have a smile on his face, but there is a sense of imposing aura around him. Imperial Father Bingxin Yin and Cheng Lu stood up successively. Bingxin returned so quickly this time. Yang Yin Yin showed a gentle smile and looked at Bingxin Yin with a loving gaze. Imperial Father, I missed you, so I hurried back, said Bingxin Yin as she walked to Yang Yin Yin's side, cuddling his arm with both hands. You can only trick your consort mother with those words. As an emperor, I will definitely not be easily fooled. Yang Yin Yin grinned and jokingly said, Come on, tell me. Have you caused some big trouble outside again? Is this how you see your daughter in your eyes? Bingxin Yin pouted discontentedly, complaining. Ha ha ha. It seems that this time I wrongly blamed you, as an emperor. Yang Yin Yin burst into laughter and continued. Tell Imperial Father why you couldn't wait to run back. Bingxin Yin hesitated slightly before slowly speaking. Because of a poem. The daylilies bloom by the hall steps, while the wanderer roams distant lands. A loving mother leans by the doorway, but sees no daylilies in her hands. Upon hearing this, Yang Yin Yin was momentarily stunned. A hint of complexity flashed across his face. He pondered for a moment, and then gently touched Bingxin Yin's forehead, sighing, I never expected this. As an emperor, my daughter has finally grown up. A poem that can change a daughter's values. Who is the author of this poem? Yang Yin Yin couldn't help but ask this question. Bingxin Yin smiled and asked back, Imperial Father, what kind of person do you think can create such poems? Yang Yin Yin frowned. Could it be a reclusive literary giant? Bingxin Yin shook his head. Then he moved his mind and directly took out a beautifully framed calligraphy from the storing ring. What is this again? Yang Yin Yin looked puzzled. Bingxin Yin, however, just smiled and remained silent. She gestured for Cheng Lu to hold one end of the calligraphy, and then carefully unroll it. An awe-inspiring line of ancient characters suddenly caught their eye as the scroll was unveiled. Yang Yin Yin's face changed dramatically in an instant. It seemed as if he was overwhelmed by the aura between the lines of the characters, retreating uncontrollably. His face was filled with unparalleled shock. He couldn't believe that it was just a calligraphy piece, containing such a terrifying profound truth of the sword path. It was truly unbelievable. Elder Lu. Which a transcendent sage created this calligraphy after all? Also, what kind of fortuitous encounter did you encounter on this trip? Yang Yin Yin, as the current emperor of the ancient Yin kingdom, is also a highly skilled sword cultivator, so he deeply feels the terrifying essence of the sword hidden in the calligraphy. Moreover, based on his judgment, the creator of this calligraphy is definitely a formidable expert of the deep and unfathomable cultivation level in the path of the sword. Chungha nodded involuntarily. Then he chuckled, stroking his beard. Your Majesty, you may not be aware. This time, during my trip with the Ninth Prince, we did indeed encounter a transcendent being. A transcendent being. Yang Yin couldn't help but show a solemn expression. You should know that Chungha Lu is the top figure of the celestial capital, hall of exceptional talents. Being referred to as a transcendent being by him certainly indicates that the person is extraordinary. Chungha nodded. This senior lives in a sacred domain within the sacred land of metaphysics. I could have a glimpse of this senior's distinguished appearance, all thanks to Ninth Prince. Is it? Yang Yin couldn't help but turn to Bingxin Yin and said, Daughter, quickly tell Imperial Father what exactly is going on. Bingxin Yin hesitated for a moment before recounting her own experiences. After listening to her account, Yang Yin's stern face was suddenly filled with a complex expression. I didn't expect that. There are actually such hidden powerhouses within my great Yin territory. Elder Lu, do you know the specific cultivation level of this senior? Chungha was stunned for a moment and self-deprecatingly said, Your Majesty, you are putting me in a difficult spot. That senior is unfathomable. Even with my cultivation level, I can't sense a trace of his essence. But I was fortunate to have visited the small courtyard where that senior resides. Although the layout is simple, it is filled with good fortune and fortuitous encounters everywhere. Even the dog raised by Senior Yi is already at the level of a monster king, barring any unexpected events. Speaking of this, Chungha quietly exhaled a turbid breath. As the saying goes, knowing the small details leads to understanding the greater picture. You can imagine what kind of existence Senior Yi is. If I'm not mistaken, he has either ascended to the tribulation stage or reached an even higher level, coming from the celestial heights. What? Coming from the celestial heights? For a moment, Yang Yin felt like a fishbone stuck in his throat. If he is indeed such a terrifying existence, then he is a secret, a colossal secret. Once exposed, he will have to bear the wrath of such a transcendent being. When Bingxin Yin learned of the terror of Chan Qingyi from Chungha, her face also turned pale. She had never imagined that the big black dog, Mr. Yi, so despised by Mr. Yi, was actually a powerful being at the Monster King level. At this moment, Yang Yin suddenly frowned and said, Elder Lu, Bingxin mentioned that she fell asleep and then suddenly appeared at that senior's house. Do you think he wants to use Bingxin as a chess piece? Chungha was indeed stunned and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Since Senior Yi has taken Ninth Prince, it means he must be aware of your Highness's identity. So, there is also this possibility. But a figure like Senior Yi, even if he sets up a plan with the Emperor of Great Yin, who under the heavens could stop him? Even my mysterious ancient ancestors from the ancient Yin kingdom would probably seem like ants to Senior Yi. Thinking of this, Chungha hesitated and nodded, then quickly shook his head. Elder Lu, what do you mean? Yang Yin couldn't help feeling puzzled. Reporting to your Majesty, Senior Yi is too mysterious. I really can't understand what he intends to do. If it's about strategy, I don't think it's necessary at all. Upon hearing this, Yang Yin nodded. After a moment of contemplation, he waved his hand and said, Elder Lu, you may leave first. I have decided to consult with the ancient forebears. Later, he turned to Bingxin Yin and said, Bingxin, please put away this calligraphy. Let's go meet with the ancient forebears. Bingxin Yin immediately showed a surprised expression. Imperial Father, hasn't it been strictly forbidden by the ancient forebears to disturb him during his seclusion? Yang Yin sighed and said, There's no other way. The Senior Yi residing in Pon Town is incredibly powerful. Imperial Father, do you suspect him of taking advantage of you? Bingxin Yin shook her head repeatedly upon hearing this. Imperial Father could never suspect that. Mr. Yi is refined and amiable. He would never act in such a way. Yang Yin smiled bitterly and said, "My daughter, you've only just come of age. Many things are not as simple as you imagine. As the proverb goes, know people by face, not by heart. Imperial Father has seen too many people like this. They may appear kind on the outside, but be cold and ruthless inside. Not to mention someone like Senior Yi, a transcendent being." Saying this, a look of unprecedented seriousness appeared on his face. If that's what Imperial Father thinks, then Bingxin Yin will never agree. Bingxin Yin is very determined. These days, she has benefited a lot from getting along with Chan Qingyi. Even though she is the 9th princess of the Great Yin Empire with outstanding talent, deep down she has already recognized Chan Qingyi as her teacher. So when Yang Yin proposed such an idea, she immediately rejected it without hesitation. The meaning of Bingxin Imperial Father is not as you imagine. Yang Yin spoke solemnly. You must be aware of Elder Lu's cultivation level. His high praise for Senior Yi is evident, as seen from the calligraphy just now. Senior Yi must be a transcendent being. Therefore, Imperial Father did not mean to belittle him. He just wants to take you to meet the ancient forebears, and see if Senior Yi is there, to see what impression you have left on him. Is that so? Bingxin Yin breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. If that's the case, the daughter is willing to go. Later, under the protection of the 20 Golden Crow guards, Yang Yin and Bingxin Yin rode in an extremely luxurious walking palanquin towards the depths of the imperial palace of the Great Yin Empire. The Great Yin Empire is one of the 4 ancient countries. Naturally, the layout and scale of the imperial palace are also very grand. Nearly a traditional time passed. The group finally arrived at a vast square guarded by hundreds of black knights. Here ancient temples stretch across, with old buildings standing in great numbers. Everywhere emits a sense of ancient solemnity and antiquity. At the same time, it also showcases the majestic royal demeanor. Yang Yin ascended a series of several hundred steps with Bingxin Yin, and finally arrived in front of an ancient temple. At this moment, a venerable voice came from inside the temple saying, "Since you're here, come in." As the voice fell, the tightly closed door of the ancient temple slowly opened. The father and daughter exchanged a glance before solemnly stepping into the ancient temple. At this moment, the light inside the temple was dim. Hundreds of candles were lit on each side of the steps. A lean figure, with its back facing the two, resembled a statue. The younger generation saw the ancient forebears. Yang Yin and Bingxin Yin saw this figure. They immediately knelt down and kowtowed. Obviously, the person in front of them was the most mysterious figure of the Great Yin Empire, the royal ancient forebear of the Tianshan Yin. It seems that little Bingxin has left the celestial capital this time, and seems to have encountered quite a bit of fortuitous encounters and good fortune. Just at that moment, an old voice echoed in the hall. The father and daughter looked puzzled, slowly raised their heads, and saw an old man in a gray robe with a smiling face standing calmly in front of them with his hands behind his back. "Please stand up." Tianshan Yin glanced at the two of them and said so casually. Yang Yin hesitated for a moment, then nodded to Bingxin Yin and stood up. "Ancient forebears, did you miss me during this time?" Bingxin Yin smiled gently, and then pounced directly on Tianshan Yin. Seeing this scene, Yang Yin's eyes were full of beauty. Bingxin Yin possesses an exquisite trait, spiritual root. Perhaps for this reason, among many princes and noble sons, it was Bingxin Yin who received favor from the ancient forebears. At this moment, the two were standing in front of the palace. "Bingxin, you haven't answered me yet. During the time away from the celestial capital, what kind of good fortune and fortuitous encounters have you encountered?" Tianshan Yin spoke again. In front of Bingxin Yin, he seemed like a kind and amiable old man, devoid of any imposing aura. Bingxin Yin glanced at Yang Yin without leaving a trace, and then smiled frankly. Reporting to the ancient forebears, during this period, Bingxin encountered a senior in the sacred land of metaphysics. Whether it was the improvement in cultivation level or other fields, Bingxin had received careful guidance from this senior. "Is that so?" Tian Shan Yin exclaimed lightly. With keen interest, he asked, "Then tell me, what kind of senior is this?" This. When she heard Tian Shan Yin's question, Bingxin Yin suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Because the cultivation level of that senior Yi is completely beyond her current level of perception. As for other aspects, she doesn't dare to imagine. Is it very difficult? Or is it that the senior you mentioned doesn't want outsiders to know his information? Tian Shan Yin continued to ask. Bingxin Yin shook her head. It's not like that with ancient forebears. It's just that senior has never disclosed anything to me. I only know his surname is Yi, and his name is Chongqing. Chongqing Yi. Tian Shan Yin furrowed his brows without leaving a trace. Clearly, he had never heard of such a name. However, due to the faint essence and flow surrounding Bingxin Yin, as well as some scattered essence of cultivation, he could tell that this person was not simple. At this point, Yang Yin Yin spoke up. Bingxin, take out the calligraphy that Senior Yi gave you and show it to the ancient forebears. Given the accomplishments of the ancient forebears in the path of the sword, they should be able to discern many things from it. A piece of calligraphy. Tian Shan Yin chuckled skeptically. What can be discerned from that? Bingxin Yin nodded and directly took out a scroll from the storing ring. It seems like he sensed something. Tian Shan Yin's expression changed slightly. His pupils constricted. Then he suddenly turned his head to look at Bingxin Yin's hands. After Bingxin Yin completely unfolded the calligraphy, he also instantly changed his face color. The expression was full of incredulity. No mistake. This is indeed the profound truth of the sword path. Unexpectedly, so many the profound truth of the sword path is contained in a piece of calligraphy. What kind of existence is this person on the path of the sword? Suddenly came to his senses. Tian Shan Yin's mind and spirit shook violently. It's hard to believe, but can you confirm again if this calligraphy is truly from that senior Bingxin's hand? Bingxin Yin nodded. Ancient forebears. This calligraphy is indeed from Mr. Yi's hand. Is there any other question? Tian Shan Yin stared at the ancient characters, thoughtful. He said, This calligraphy flows like clouds in water. It can be considered a masterpiece. If it is shown to others, it might cause a storm in the literary world and make those so-called literary figures feel ashamed of their own work. However, the most precious aspect of this calligraphy lies in the profound truth of the sword path contained within it. I have cultivated the path of the sword for thousands of years, yet compared to this calligraphy, I am still greatly lacking. Speaking of this, Tian Shan Yin couldn't help but feel emotional. I never expected that there would be someone in this world who could comprehend the path of the sword to such a profound level. Today, I have truly broadened my horizons. Upon hearing the high praise from the ancient forebears for this calligraphy, Yang Yin Yin couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart. A hint of gloominess appeared on his face. His visit this time had two purposes. One was to have the ancient forebears use their secret methods to investigate Bingxin Yin's body, to see if there were any marks left. After all, Bingxin was still young, and it was inevitable that he might be manipulated and used as a pawn. The second purpose was that the accomplishments of the ancient forebears reflect the laws of nature. Their cultivation level is extremely high, and this calligraphy contains the profound truth of the sword path, illustrating the harmony of the ancient forebears on the path of the sword. Naturally, it is not surprising that one would want to find some clues from it. Who would have thought that the ancient forebears would make such an evaluation? They even said it was eye-opening. So one can imagine how terrifying of a presence this senior Yi must be. At this moment, Tian Shan Yin looked at Bingxin Yin with some excitement. Girl, you just mentioned that the senior who created this calligraphy is within the sacred land of metaphysics. Bingxin Yin was taken aback for a moment, nodded uncontrollably, and reported to the ancient forebears that Mr. Yi was indeed within a sacred domain called Pond Town in the sacred land of metaphysics. Is this senior still in Pond Town now? Yes, he is. I asked Mr. Yi before, and he said he has no plans to leave for the time being. He also promised to give me time to visit again before I leave. If that's true, upon hearing this, Tianshan Yan's wrinkled old face immediately filled with excitement and excitement. Bingxin Yan is smart as ice and snow. She can see his thoughts at a glance. Ancient forebears. Do you also want to see Mr. Yi? Tianshan Yan shook his head with a bitter smile. This senior's understanding of the path of the sword has probably reached its peak. If I could have the fortunate opportunity to meet him, it might be comparable to 1,000 years of ascetic practice. At this time, Yang Yin hesitated again and said, Ancient forebears. A few days ago, Bingxin and Elder Lu's group were resting in Qinghe City. The result may have been the work of this senior. Bingxin unexpectedly ended up in Pan Town, and it was the small courtyard where the senior resided. If Bingxin really is like this, Tianshan Yan was greatly surprised when he heard this. Bingxin Yan calmly nodded in response. Yang Yin said cautiously, Ancient forebears, do you think the senior might want Bingxin to do something? Or? He didn't dare to continue speaking halfway through. And with the meticulous thinking of the ancient forebears, he naturally guessed what he wanted to say. Tianshan Yan raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, Your concerns are not unreasonable. However, in my opinion, someone with Senior Ye's attainments should not do such a thing. The rumors circulating in the world about those old codgers using the weak as pawns for their own benefit do exist. However, most of them have reached a bottleneck in their realm for thousands or even tens of thousands of years, but they have always been unable to take that step forward. This ultimately leads to a significant drop in their state of mind, forcing them to resort to some unorthodox methods to break through the realm. But this senior is different. It is estimated that he has reached the peak on the path of the sword, so there is no talk of breaking through the realm. It can be considered as being free from desires and aspirations. As the proverb goes, the true recluse dwells amidst the bustling city, while the lesser recluse retreats to the tranquil mountains. At the level of this senior, they prefer to seclude themselves within the secular world, smiling at the vicissitudes of mortal life. If I am not mistaken, this senior who resides in Pan Town must be a refined and amiable person. Speaking of this, Tianshan Yan couldn't help but glance at Bingxin Yan, as if inquiring. Bingxin Yan was stunned for a moment, then quickly nodded because it was almost exactly what the ancient forebears and Mr. Yi had said. Ancient forebears, you might as well investigate. Despite saying this, Yang Yin still harbors doubts. Upon hearing this, Tianshan Yan's face immediately turned cold. Very well. Since you are not at ease, I will use secret methods to examine Bingxin's body and see if there are any marks left by that senior. Finishing his words, he quickly formed hand seals with both hands. A majestic surge of spiritual energy filled the air. Soon, a divine seal manifested out of thin air, radiating a brilliant light mist that finally hovered above Bingxin Yan's head. The thick long hair fluttered. An intense icy essence gushed out. Yes, what Bingxin Yan possesses is indeed the exquisite frost element spiritual root. But, after just a few breaths, a blue light on her body started to circulate. A gentle essence flowed out, gradually neutralizing the cold essence. At this moment, both Tianshan Yan and Yang Yan's faces were filled with incredible expressions. You should know that the current Bingxin Yan is no longer just a single frost element spiritual root, but has also gained an additional water element spiritual root. Ancient forebears, what exactly is going on with Bingxin? Yang Yan's mind and spirit were greatly shaken. He kept asking in a trembling voice. Tianshan Yan furrowed his brow, pondering. This must be the gift from that senior. At this moment, the shock in the hearts of both Tianshan Yan and Yang Yin is indescribable. The gift of spiritual root has completely subverted their worldview. It is well known that in this world, having dual spiritual roots means that even among millions of people, it is rare to find one. People with dual spiritual roots are destined to have an extraordinary life. For example, Changming Li is a genius in cultivation who possesses dual spiritual roots. When he participated in the disciple assessment of the sacred land of metaphysics, it was discovered that he was a once-in-a-lifetime genius with dual spiritual roots. The entire sacred land of metaphysics was in an uproar. On that day, Tens of thousands of disciples of the sacred land of metaphysics gathered at the main peak. All the senior members stood in front of the mountain gate to welcome his arrival. Even a grand elder, who was in seclusion, came out early because of him. It's easy to imagine how lucky Bingxin Yin is. Because of the gift from Senior Yi, she now possesses both the exquisite frost element spiritual root and water element spiritual root. In this way, she can easily match the saint cultivators and saintess cultivators of various major sacred sites. Ancient forebears. What kind of existence is this Senior Yi? He actually bestowed upon Bingxin an exquisite water element spiritual root. Yang Yin shook his head continuously, his face filled with complex emotions. Unbelievable. This is simply too unbelievable. At this moment, Tianshan Yin also suddenly came to his senses. He looked at Yang Yin, his face turning cold. Now you see it too. That senior left no trace on Bingxin. Instead, an additional exquisite water element spiritual root appeared. What do you say? Upon hearing this, Yang Yin's neck shrank, and he quickly knelt down on the ground. Ancient forebears. Yang Yin realized his mistake. Tianshan Yin snorted coldly. As a sovereign of a country, your mind is so narrow. That senior gifted me a once-in-a-lifetime genius for the ancient Yin kingdom, and you still harbor doubts. It's truly ridiculous beyond measure. At this moment, Bingxin Yin, with the visions around her gradually dissipating, saw her beloved imperial father kneeling on the ground, repentant, constantly biting his lip, with a complex expression on his face. Ancient forebears, imperial father is not that kind of person. He is also worried about me, that's why he resorted to such a drastic measure. Tianshan Yin glanced at Bingxin, his expression softened. If it were not for this reason, his existence as an emperor would be unnecessary. Upon hearing this, Bingxin Yin was stunned. A look of horror spread across her face. It seems that the ancient forebears are truly angry this time. Soon, Tianshan Yin continued, Yang Yin, listen carefully. That senior has shown kindness to our ancient Yin kingdom in the face of such terrifying power. No matter what kind of treasures there are, they are meaningless. Therefore, I command you to build a temple for this senior within the celestial capital. Erect a golden statue to receive the worship of the people. This is to express the attitude and apology of our ancient Yin kingdom. Did you hear that? Yang Yin, with a face ashen, slowly raised his head. He glanced nervously at the ancient forebears. As soon as we leave here, I will arrange for people to build a temple for that senior. Tianshan Yin nodded in satisfaction. In that case, you go ahead and leave first. Let Bingxin stay. I have questions to ask her. Yang Yin slowly stood up. Then he bowed deeply as a gesture of respect. Ancient forebears, I will take my leave now. At this point, Tianshan Yin added, Furthermore, from now on, Bingxin can come and go as she pleases here. Hearing this, Yang Yin nodded gently. Bingxin is currently endowed with the exquisite twins elements spiritual root. Her future achievements are immeasurable. It is only natural that the ancient forebears have arranged things in this way. After Yang Yin left, a gentle smile appeared on Tianshan Yin's face. Bingxin, didn't you mention before that the senior promised you could visit him anytime? When do you plan to head to Pond Town again? Ancient forebears. I plan to go later. After all, this time away, it has been several months since I last saw consort mother and my eldest brother. That's fine. When I visit that senior next time, I will go with you. Bingxin understands. In the meantime, after Yang Yin returned to the palace, he immediately issued an edict to the Department of Works to construct temples in the celestial capital. He requested the site to be selected overnight, and construction began the following day. After the edict was issued, it quickly caused a stir throughout the celestial capital. Everyone was amazed and puzzled. What exactly was going on? The emperor unexpectedly ordered the construction of temples in the celestial capital overnight, and it was all for a relatively unknown person. Who exactly is Chan Qingyi? He is neither a famous figure in the cultivation world nor a literary giant. So, what is the significance of building a temple for him? No, I must see the emperor and inquire about the reasons behind this. One moment. Due to the establishment of Chongqing Temple, various big shots in the celestial capital have raised doubts and memorialized the court. However, the Hall of Exceptional Talents has remained silent all along. Only a piece of unofficial news has leaked out. The top figure of the Hall of Exceptional Talents, Elder Liu, personally spoke out, stating that no one should advise the emperor on this matter. Otherwise, they will be immediately expelled from the Hall of Exceptional Talents and never be employed again. As for Yang Yin, he directly instructed the eunuch to burn all the memorials and provide a unified response. From now on, the Great Yin Empire will thrive for a long time because of Senior Yi. When Yang Yin gave such a response, the entire celestial capital was in an uproar. Everyone is suspicious. Who exactly is this so-called Senior Yi? To actually make the emperor of the vast and populous Great Yin Empire say such words is simply unbelievable. Meanwhile, the entire celestial capital is also in turmoil. Spies inserted by other countries immediately relayed this news back to their own countries. In just a few days, the entire Zhongzhou continent was in an uproar. Who exactly is Senior Yi? He actually made Yang Yin, that cautious person, become so arrogant. Could it be that the old codger from the Great Yin Empire is about to break through? It is very likely. The old codger from the Great Yin Empire has been alive for nearly 4,000 years. He has been at that level for over 2,000 years. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be as you said. But why does the Great Yin Empire do this? The four ancient countries in Zhongzhou are like tigers and dragons. Even if that old man makes a breakthrough, it is absolutely impossible for him to swallow the other three countries. At this moment in the palace of Ancient Shen Kingdom, the Ancient Shen Kingdom Emperor and a group of confidants are discussing this. Quickly pass on a message to the spies of the Great Yin Empire. Just say, as an emperor, I need reliable information. Who exactly is this Senior Yi that Yang Yin mentioned? Understood. On the other side, in the study of the Emperor of the Great Xia Empire, several elderly men were also discussing. Our Emperor, do you think Senior Yi might have already settled in the celestial capital of the Great Yin Empire? You see, building temples and receiving incense offerings from the people is not something an ordinary cultivator can enjoy. Unless one is on the verge of rising to the celestial realm, like a transcendent being of unrivaled skill, or a supreme being transcending to the celestial heights. By the way, there are rumors that the ancient forebears of the Great Yin Empire have been at a standstill in their cultivation for thousands of years. Could it be him? It's possible. If that's the case, the entire situation in Zhongzhou will undergo massive changes. It might even spark another war. At the same time, in the sacred realm of purple and azure within the Great Xia Empire, a group of high-level officials gathered at the Purple and Azure Hall. Saint Master, Yang Yin spread such news. Could it be that old guy Tian Shan Yin has encountered some problems in cultivation? It is not impossible. Among the four ancient emperors of Zhongzhou, Emperor Yang Yin has no real power. Him spreading such news at this time may indeed be at the behest of that old guy Tian Shan Yin. Alas! If it is indeed the case, the situation in Zhongzhou is likely to change again. Yes. Over 10,000 years ago, the power struggle among the seven kingdoms led to immense suffering in Zhongzhou, plunging the land into chaos. The Eastern Sorcery sect took advantage of the situation to infiltrate Zhongzhou, eventually causing the Dao sect and Sorcery sect to go to war. Alright. It's still too early to consider these matters. Let's first send someone to the celestial capital. Ask Yang Yin what's going on. By the way, has there been any news from the sacred land of metaphysics? Reply to the Saint Master. There has been no news from the sacred land of metaphysics. The imminent martial arts competition between the two great sacred lands is approaching. However, such an incident has occurred now. Should we still proceed with our journey? This matter is not urgent. There are 2 days left. Send someone to investigate the celestial capital first, and make a decision after clarifying the situation. In the blink of an eye. It has been 3 days and 3 nights since the issuance of the imperial edict by Yang Yin, the person in charge of the Great Yin Empire Department of Works selected the site overnight. Finally, the decision was made to build the temple on the eastern hill of the celestial capital. The eastern hill here has mountains and water, with beautiful scenery. It can definitely be considered a treasure trove of feng shui. When they reported the location to him, Yang Yin immediately approved without any hesitation. Next, construction began on Dongshan. The Department of Works dispatched nearly 800 laborers. The progress of the project was truly impressive. On the other hand, in the vast celestial capital, there are only Bingxin Yin and Chenghe Lu who have seen Senior Yi with their own eyes. However, Chenghe Lu has recently shut himself in, claiming a breakthrough is imminent. In the end, only Bingxin Yin had to take personal charge of sculpting the golden statue.